Thank you for joining us today on Pesky Pests. I am your host, Zach Canning, live from New York City. So without further ado, please welcome our first guest tonight, entomologist, student of the month, and author of the best-selling book, Pest Management 101. It's Farhan Sheikh, everybody. Yes, thank you for joining us, Farhan. Here, take a seat. I had a question I wanted to ask you. Do you know where bugs get off the train?
Huh?
At the infestation.
Jokes aside, I'll keep that for one later. But jokes aside, pest and bug management have been a huge issue in our country for quite some time. So I'm here to talk about and advocate for the most efficient pest management possible.
Yes. So what exactly is a pest?
A pest is an organism that is harmful to human or human interests, such as food. Approximately 40% of crop yields are lost to pests each year.
Wow, that really is horrible. Now, what can we do to keep pests off our crops?
Well, it is inevitable that pests will inhabit our farm fields, but we can control their reproductive success and their population through a pest management technique known as the sterile male technique.
Interesting. Could you explain that a little bit more, please?
Sure. The sterile male technique is a method of pest management in which a large group of male pests are selected from the target population and sterilized through high radiation treatment, meaning that they're not able to produce children with female pests. Once sterilized, the males are released into the target population, and the sterilized male begin to mate with the female pest and unsuccessfully produce offspring, thus decreasing the pest population growth rapidly.
All right, so from my understanding, sterile male technique is very efficient in managing pests and certainly lowering pest populations. But is that environmentally safe? And how can it be any better than other pest management techniques?
Sure, that's a great question, Zach. So unlike chemical pesticides, this technique is completely free from any use of chemicals. And due to this chemical-free use, chemical pesticides would not be needed to be used if this technique is properly implemented on a massive scale. In addition, it only targets one species and doesn't impact any other organisms and the ecosystems overall, which would occur if chemical pesticides were used.
Interesting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but can't pests form a resistance to any selective pressure they face, like bacteria? Like, I've heard of some DDT, insecticide and stuff. It was used on a massive scale in the 20th century. But in a very short time, most of the insects became resistant to the insecticide. Now, how can this technique prevent that?
Well, the male pests are sterilized through irradiation, which is the high use of high radiation, X-rays, UV rays, etc., to destroy their reproductive organs. Resistance in species is created usually when they're negatively affected by chemicals or environmental pressures, but this technique uses radiation. And so far, no organism on Earth has been found that is completely resistant to radiation. So resistance to this technique is never going to be a problem and never was a problem.
That seems like a very efficient method of pest management. And as you said, 40% of crop yields worldwide are lost to pests. So if this technique is used around the world, that percentage could drop massively. Which brings me to my next question. Is this technique actively being used right now?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. This technique has been proven to be quite efficient against fruit flies and mosquitoes in the United States. Those insects are infamous for carrying one of the deadliest diseases in human history, malaria, and other diseases harmful to crops. Now, in areas such as Florida, sterilized fruit flies species have been released into the wild, and the statistics record an increase in crop yields and lower fruit fly activity.
Well, I'm sure our viewers are very informed about the sterile male technique. They'll have some farmers and possibly some legislators who can advocate about this and bring awareness to such a huge issue. Farhan, it was a pleasure to have you here tonight. So please stay with us after this commercial break.